Hi everyone, hope you are feeling positive and healthy. Please subscribe with all bell notifications if you haven't already, and please don't hesitate to leave your valuable feedback and advice below. Thank you very much. Let's jump into the stories. Am I the unreasonable one for getting my son's girlfriend arrested? I despise the person my son is with. She is very argumentative and trashy, and she thought when she got pregnant she could use the child as a weapon against everyone. She called me up and said if I didn't pay her light bill she wouldn't tell me when my grandson was born. I hung up on her and now she complains that I never offer to help her with the baby. Well, obviously not when she keeps threatening to go no contact. My son and I aren't getting along right now, but he loves his 9-year-old sister. I make sure this doesn't affect her being able to see him. She went to their house the other day and I ended up being like 10 minutes late, so he had to leave for work before I got there. When I got there, the girlfriend said I'm not allowed on her property because she found out from my niece that I'd been making fun of her with my sister. I said okay, give me my daughter and I'll leave. She said I had to go and my husband had to come back for our daughter because I'm not allowed on her property. I warned her that I was going to call 911. There is a big picture window so I could see my daughter. She was at the table eating ice cream and completely fine, and I never once thought she would harm her, but she still has no right to keep her. She then said I need to apologize for crap talking her and begged to get my daughter back. I called the police and the officer who came out was not amused. He kind of implied that since it was a family matter he would follow my lead. I said she committed a crime and I am absolving myself of any responsibility, and I left with my daughter. Now she is facing charges and my son called me crying saying she was just being petty and I should have called him and not the police. Edit, because a lot of people are confused. I never spoke badly of them in front of my daughter. My 21-year-old niece lives with my sister and told them what we were saying. Not the unreasonable one. Time for the girlfriend to get a wake-up call. She actually thought kidnapping was an acceptable reaction to being mad at you. Not the unreasonable one. She did basically kidnap your daughter. I would tell your son if he wants a relationship with his sister, it needs to be at your house and without GF. I will also say, though, that you need to be more careful about who you talk crap about her in front of. Children should not be privy to that kind of information. Am I the unreasonable one for telling my wife that it is her fault that we are homeless? So I can't even believe this is real life right now, but we just got kicked out of my mom's house. My wife and I have a 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl, and my wife is super militant about sugar. Sugar for breakfast is a definite no-no. My stepdad came home with a donut for my 12-year-old sister for breakfast, which triggered a massive tantrum from our 3-year-old. My wife called my stepdad selfish to bringing a donut into the house, his freaking house, and my stepdad went off calling us both horrible names, and making fun of my wife's body and bad skin. My sister and mom were just laughing, and I tried to defuse, but my wife took the rest of the donut out of my sister's hand and threw it in the trash. My mom and stepdad went crazy. I was trying to get my 2 kids away, because they were saying some really abusive stuff, and my sister was asking if she could get her arrested. My stepdad said we had to get out immediately, and he was so angry it was scaring me. I just grabbed my kids and we left. My mom called an hour later and said we aren't welcome back, because my sister feels unsafe, over a freaking donut. I could hear my stepdad in the back threatening to spit on my grave. He is Middle Eastern and has some weird ideas about money and family honor, and I think he was really offended. My wife was going off about what a bitch my mom is, and I told her that it is her fault. I get that my mom acted crazy, but I still blame my wife for starting all of this. She cried and asked me to take it back, but I refused. Now she has been crying on and off all day and I think she is beginning to blame herself. Everyone sucks here. And, for the record, you were homeless before as well. A married couple with 2 kids living with your parents? You were already homeless. Not all of this is on her. Everyone sucks here. Y'all need therapy. Nothing in this whole situation is normal. Your wife overreacts to a donut and damp. Your family is a bunch of abusive a-holes. Also, and for all the same comments about the therapy thing, since y'all seem to have an issue reading how I replied to a previous comment saying the exact same crap you did. 1. We don't even know where OP lives. In a lot of countries therapy is part of socialized healthcare. 2. A plus wife plus kids are homeless, his parents and sister aren't, and they also need therapy and can presumably afford it even if it isn't included in the country's healthcare system. Also, in one of OP's comments he mentions his stepfather appears to have PTSD, which further reinforces needing therapy. 3. Needing therapy doesn't change whether they can afford it or not. They still desperately need it. Just like, they can't afford a house yet they need a house. Am I the unreasonable one for not defending my husband when my parents berated him? So, what happened has caused a huge conflict and most of my family members has pretty much cut contact with me. My F-28 sister F-25 had a stillbirth last week. It was so devastating for her and her husband as they had so much hope with having this baby after having miscarried in the past. My sister spent the following days at her home, feeling exhausted and depressed. I called her to check on her, but she kept the conversation short. My mom was very concerned and decided to invite her and her husband for dinner on Sunday to get her to feel better, and also since the family wanted to see my sister and support her, so mom thought having a family dinner was a good idea. On Thursdays I found out I was pregnant, but I didn't tell anyone thinking the time wasn't right, so only me and my husband knew about it. We got there. My husband was surprised to see the whole family was there, saying he didn't expect that. I sat with my sister before dinner. She looked like a mess. We cried together and I absolutely felt her sorrow and how she was struggling with her loss. After that we all started having dinner. While everyone was talking casually, my husband called for everyone's attention, said he wanted to take a minute to announce that I was pregnant and that we found out this week. I was shocked, speechless. Everyone started congratulating me while my sister got up and literally walked outside. Her husband followed her. My parents were the only ones who didn't move. They just stared at me and my husband disgusted. A few minutes later her husband got back inside to get her bag and they left. Things got quiet. My aunt, cousin and her family started leaving. I wanted to leave, but my dad told us to stay cause he wanted to talk to my husband. I knew there was gonna be a crap show since my husband had a history with them. My father lost it. He yelled at my husband and called what he did insensitive and inappropriate. My husband wanted me to defend him, but I just sat there while my dad was raising his voice for being disrespectful and inconsiderate and a jerk. My husband responded with bringing up past issues, said they were playing favorites and told them that because of this they will never see his kid. We got kicked out by my dad. We got home. My husband blew up on me for not defending him, but I yelled at him that what he did was very wrong and that my sister will most likely never talk to me again, thinking I was behind this. We argued for a few minutes and he told me to F off and slammed the door, to go be with his buddies after I told him to fix his anger issues. I told my husband to not tell anyone about my pregnancy, but he thought since the whole family was there that this was a perfect time. He completely disregarded everyone's feelings. I know he's my husband, but they're my family and they were hurt. My dad was hurt. Not the unreasonable one. Honestly, your husband sounds incredibly insensitive and ignorant. If he doesn't see that he majorly screwed up, then you need to have a talk. Not the unreasonable one. Why are you with this dude, who is so ridiculously selfish and self-centered, to announce that without your consent while your sister is grieving, and then to expect you to defend him? Try to talk to your sister and tell her you weren't behind this and you're mad at your husband for doing it. This behavior from your husband is honestly disgusting. Am I the unreasonable one for being mad my fiancé took $3,000 without my consent? Me, 26 years old female, and my fiancé, 32 years old male, have been engaged for 5 months now and we're getting married in October. Ever since we got engaged, my fiancé and I decided to start saving up for our wedding, so we opened a joint bank account. We have a good sum of money. My fiancé does not put money as much as I do because he stopped working a month after we opened the account and it is just me saving up for now. My fiancé's mom is an absolute awful person. She always tries to belittle me and say offensive stuff to me, but I just ignore her to keep the peace. I heard my mother-in-law was remodeling her kitchen, and that her 2 daughters contributed, and she started calling my fiancé to pay his share. He told her he didn't have the money and the topic was dropped. Yesterday, I went to the bank and I found out that my fiancé took $3,000 from our joint account without telling me. At first I thought it was a mistake, but the money was indeed taken by him. I was confused, but he had a habit of taking money from me so he could buy his mom a birthday present, pay to fix her car, and would say he'll give it back. He never did, but I thought since we're now as one I can't possibly ask him to return the money, plus it wasn't that much. I went home and I confronted him about the $3,000. First he apologized and said that he was planning on telling me earlier, but his mom was pressuring him and thought I'd say no if he asked for money. I got so mad at him for this and I started yelling at him, asking him how he could do this and that now we don't have enough money for the wedding. His tone changed, saying that since I make more than what I need then he saw nothing wrong with helping his family. My job pays a little above average, but that doesn't mean I don't work hard for it. He basically got defensive. I was so angry I left the apartment literally crying after we argued for some time. His mom called, and it turned out he lied to his family that the money was his since it was joint account. She lashed out at me and said that I was trying to isolate him from his family and yelling at him for his contribution. I was stunned. I blocked her immediately, and I'm no longer responding to his calls trying to say that he loves me and that it is worth billions. saying he'll pay back when he get a job, but it doesn't seem likely. Not the unreasonable one. This won't change and I'd advise you give your future a long, hard contemplation to see if this is the future you want. Not the unreasonable one. Do you really want to marry into this? Your fiancé doesn't seem to respect you enough to at least discuss it with you. And at least half of that money is yours, so it's theft. If it was me, I'd be long gone. Am I the unreasonable one for bringing up the fact that my wife makes 4 times as much when explaining why I had to have my 1-year-old son with me during a video meeting? I work for a local radio station. I'm still part-time, despite basically working as many hours as the full-time staff does. But I love the job and understand how competitive the entertainment field is, so I've never complained. Plus my wife makes good enough dollar where I don't even have to work, but I still do. At my job, we have a lot of giveaways and contests coming up for the first time since the pandemic hit, so my boss wanted to have a video meeting via Zoom today at noon. Since my wife works all day, and I'm pretty much the primary caretaker of our son, I had to have him with me during the meeting. Noon is his most playful time of the day, so he's usually very active during this time, so during my meeting he was making a lot of playful squeaks, banging toys and trying to play with my laptop when I would have him on my lap. At one point, one of my coworkers, 27 years old female, asked if it was possible to have my wife watch him during the meeting because he was distracting. I told them that she couldn't because she was having a video meeting in the other room, and it was super important. Then a different coworker, 30 years old male, pointed out that we were in a meeting that's super important and she should watch him for just a few minutes because it shouldn't take too much longer. So then I said sorry, but my wife makes 4 times what I do in a year, so her job has a little bit more priority in this household. No one said anything after that, but there was an awkward energy and I knew I had crossed a line with that quip. I then offered to mute myself during the meeting so they didn't hear him, which was accepted in a seemingly begrudging way. Later I received an email from my boss, 29 years old male, basically quizzing me on the meeting, and of course I aced it because I know how to multitask with a kid. Even though I proved that I knew everything, I was told that some of my coworkers don't think I'm taking the job serious and need to do more to prove that. So am I the unreasonable one for saying what I said? DLDR, had my 1-year-old son with me during a video meeting. He was being playful and loud, and when my coworker asked if my wife could watch him while we did our meeting, I said it couldn't be done because her work meeting was more important since she makes 4 times as much as I do in a year. Am I the unreasonable one for saying that? Not the unreasonable one. Interesting, you were asked to fetch your wife to care for your son. You are the unreasonable one for leaving your mic open when you have a kid in your lap. Seriously, just put yourself on push to talk. Everyone should be on push to talk anyway. Am I the unreasonable one for dancing at a wedding? My boyfriend Jay, 23 years old male, and I, 23 years old male, are both guys. A few months before lockdown my cousin got married. This happened then. I am seeing that side of the family soon as lockdown is being eased near me and we're having an outdoor meetup. Jay will also be attending this. The wedding had about 40 people and more friends/colleagues at the reception. Jay was at to both. The reception had plenty of places to sit/chat and a large dance floor. About an hour into it is when they had their first dance and afterwards everyone went to join them, Jay and I included. Since it was just after the first dance, the band still played slow music, so people were dancing as couples, holding each other, quick kiss etc. Nothing obscene, just a peck. This is when it happens. The groom's brother, who I've met a few times, but never really spoken to, comes over and asks me and Jay to stop dancing together and we ask why. He says that there are young children present, toddlers to 8/9, his daughter included, 3, and he didn't want her exposed to the gay and confusing her as to why 2 men could be together. He said that all the parents of the young children agreed with him and they didn't want their kids to start asking questions or thinking that it was okay for them. I've never had much patience for this thinking. I didn't shout or cause a scene, but I made it clear I was annoyed and basically said that we wouldn't stop dancing together, holding hands or having the occasional kiss, and that he couldn't constantly police the environment his child was in, and if he was uncomfortable with a situation that his child was exposed to, it was his responsibility to remove her from it, not try to remove other people for simply being there. I also mentioned that it was a wedding celebrating a couple and if she could understand that it wasn't hard to understand LGBT+ relationships. People close to us dancing heard this and said there was nothing wrong, but he wouldn't listen. After this he went to find his brother, groom, and asked him to get us to stop. He refused. He stormed back to his wife and daughter and told them they were leaving. During their goodbyes he told everyone that we were making them leave for being inappropriate in front of his daughter and feeling like he couldn't stay as we were throwing our abnormal lifestyle and sexuality around innocent children. His parents and brother were annoyed at this, but he refused to stay, saying that if they didn't agree, they were wishing trauma on his child. After this it got a bit awkward with his side of the family/friends. Most were fine with it, his parents and brother included. However, his brother was annoyed that his best man had stormed off, but several came over to our table and said we drove him out the wedding and we should have just stopped so that the family could enjoy the event. Should we have stopped dancing to keep the peace for the day and not having caused a negative experience at my cousin's wedding? Not the unreasonable one. The bride and groom were obviously okay with you guys doing your thing. He had absolutely no right to say anything to you either way. He was being an a-hole, and it sounds like most of his family thought so too. Not the unreasonable one. I'm glad he left. There should be no room for homophobia at a celebration of love, or anywhere for that matter. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.